What's going on, everyone? So, Sidney Prescott is going to be the target of Ghostface. Ghostface is going to find Sidney, target her, and go after her. And there's a lot of questions that come with that, right? Well, one, why is Ghostface going after her? Two, what took so long for Ghostface to go after her, right? I mean, you're talking the last time Ghostface went after Sidney was in Scream 4, and Ghostface wasn't even really going after Sidney, right? She just happened to show up, and Jill was like, oh, okay, cool, right? Like, same thing in Scream 5. It was like, Sidney shows up to avenge Dewey, and it's like, okay, cool. Amber and Richie are like, let's get it, right? The last time Ghostface actually went out of their way to target Sidney was Scream 3. So you're talking 25 years, right? So to me, it's like, how do you explain that? Now, there's rumors going around that Sidney's location gets leaked, and that's why Ghostface goes and targets her. But the question with that is like, okay, she's Sidney Prescott, right? Like, she's a public figure. She's written books, right? She's done a lot. Like, people, like, right, if she's out in the open, right, she's not a recluse, which I don't imagine that she would be, because she has children, and she was, last time we saw her in Scream 5, she was running down up here and just, getting ready to drop the girls off at school and stuff. So I don't think she was in the middle of nowhere. So again, how do you explain why Ghostface just now all of a sudden out of the blue, for no apparent reason, wants to hunt and track down Sidney Prescott and her family, right? Like, again, you gotta make things make sense. Gotta have things add up. So to me, what if Sidney Prescott really isn't Sidney Prescott? Now, I don't mean in the sense of like, oh, it's a doppelganger, it's the sister or something. No, I mean in the sense of like, what if her name isn't Sidney Prescott, right? So go with me for a second, right? Couple things. One, last time we saw Sidney outside of Scream 5, which we'll touch on here in a moment, but last time we actually saw Sidney, movie-centered, focused on Sidney, was Scream 4. Before that, Scream 3, she was a recluse. She was out in the middle of nowhere, changed her name, right, was hiding and trying to stay away, right? Okay. Scream 4, the whole point was stepping out of darkness, right? I need to come out into the light, no more hiding, which tells us she's essentially hiding the entire time. So this is my time to step out of darkness. That was the whole point. That was the whole play. Ghostface shows up. Ghostface, now, once again, now she has kids and all that stuff, right? So to me, if she had kids and she's Sidney Prescott and she is known, wouldn't it make sense for her to change her name again? And instead of this time going out and hiding, she could just kind of go out and, live as Laura or whatever, right? Like, I don't think she changed her name to Laura again, but you get my point, right? And then Scream 5, right? We don't know if she changed her name. The only thing we know is Dewey contacting her and going, hey, Sid, right? Like, Dewey knows her as Sidney. Well, Dewey knew Laura was Sidney, right? Like, to Dewey, he didn't care about the name change, right? So if Sidney changed her name after Scream 4, which would, again, make sense given that she has children, she doesn't want her children to be targeted, she doesn't want to get targeted. If she's going around and operating as Sidney Prescott, that's going to bring attention. Now, the counterpoint to that would be, her again being a public figure and people would notice, which is why you may say, well, Sam knew who Sidney. Well, yeah, most people that are familiar with Scream or not Scream, but Ghostface and Stab know who Sidney Prescott is. And Gail called Sidney Prescott to come. So obviously it's like, hey, and Sidney went and approached her and whatnot, right? So again, it's not far-fetched to think that Sidney changed her name. Also, Mark Kincaid, right? Last we saw him, he was a detective in Hollywood. So if he moved and left, right, he could have changed his name too. And if anyone could do that, it would be Mark Kincaid who's a detective. You don't think Mark Kincaid wouldn't be able to easily just change Sidney and his name, and they could just live their life and operate as, Laura and, Chris, whatever, right? Like, and they're just going about their business. They're just a mother and, or, a mother and husband, mother and father, husband and wife that's just out there living their best life, right? Protect the children so no one knows. Now, of course, there's probably the occasional person that's like, oh, that's Sidney Prescott. But the whole point would be it would make it harder for Ghostface to track her down. And, right, like, you could even, so before Scream 5, last time we saw her was Scream 4, where she was getting torn. Like, if they wanted to fake her death, they could. Right? Like, I mean, she was in the hospital. She was attacked in the hospital again. Right? Like, I mean, again, you have a detective who has connections. You have Dewey who has connections, right? Like, it's not hard to, if they want, I mean, even just a normal person, right? That doesn't have a detective as a husband and, a best friend that's a sheriff, right? Like, just even you could go down right now to the courthouse and change your name. So to me, it's like, why, how do you explain Ghostface not targeting Sidney prior, right? Why has Ghostface basically taken 25 years to all of a sudden reemerge and go after Sidney? Now, you could just keep it as like, you could keep it straightforward if you wanted to, and now this Ghostface is just crazy enough to go after Sidney, but even then it's like wouldn't Sidney, again, wouldn't she take and have safety measures in place? Wouldn't she want to kind of protect her children from, potential ridicule and just exposure of her as Sidney Prescott and the hate that comes with that? I mean, even in Scream 4, we saw, she was the harbinger of death, right? Like, she was the dark angel. And wouldn't she also want to keep her children safe from a potential Ghostface attack if Ghostface was to ever come and target her again? Wouldn't she fear that Ghostface would use her children as a leverage point to take out Sidney? But again, Sidney's been through this rodeo. And how is she just comfortable living, just running down the pier, living her best life, right? She's got this family, these kids, and she's operating as Sidney Prescott. Like, again, I think it would be, I just think I'm not saying it would be a hard sell, but I just think, again, like, why now, right? Like, how do you explain now? Where to me, it's like, if she changed her name, you could she's hiding in plain sight, right? Now, she's not out as living as a recluse to where, a Ghostface is trying to find out who she is or where she is, like you saw in Scream 3, where it's like, they're trying to steal records and all that. Like, no, it's like, okay, maybe they have a back. Sidney died, and she died at the hands of Jill or something like that. You could have just some easy tie-in, or maybe it was just after. Maybe she died of complications after, and they faked her death, and maybe her and Dewey had some conversation, right? Because again, Dewey and Gail and the people close to her and the people in her life, they would know she's Sidney, right? Like, again, like, but Sidney hadn't even kept in contact with Dewey and Gail for a long time, right? I mean, we saw it in Scream 5. But again, Dewey would know she's still Sidney, right? But she, like, there isn't this communication for the track down, for the, like, oh, we can use Dewey to track down Sidney type thing, right? And granted, again, like, you could always have it to where just Ghostface has just been, all the other Ghostface has just been trying to do other things, and Sidney's the one that they don't want to risk trying to die at the hands of. But also, is it like, if you're crazy enough to become Ghostface, wouldn't you be crazy enough to want to be the one to take out Sidney? Like, isn't that the whole thing? Isn't that the point of, like, hey, like, I get to be the one that said I get to kill Sidney, whether it's a cult route, whether it's an individual route, whether it's whatever, right? Like, every Ghostface, that's like the white whale. That's like oh, if I can do this, watch out, world. I'm ready to conquer the universe, right? Like, I'm the new Thanos, right? Like, it's just, I don't know. It's just something that I was thinking about, and I was like, it would make sense. And again, if you look at Scream 3, last time we saw her in Scream 3, she was a recluse. She was hiding, changed her name, all that stuff. Scream 4 was her stepping out of darkness, stepping in and moving into the light, and immediately ran into Ghostface. So wouldn't it make sense that she kind of like, okay, well, maybe I can use this opportunity to kind of get back. All right, I did the book tour thing. I fired my manager. She's dead. Book thing didn't work. Let me get back. I have family. I have kids. I have all this stuff. Like, I don't want to run the risk of something happening to all of them. All right, so let's go back, change her name. Again, Scream 5, we don't have enough information either way to know what it is. Again, Dewey calling her Sidney. Again, it's Dewey. He knew and called her Sidney when she was Laura in Scream 3. Right? Like, so, and again, people recognize her. People would know her. Right? So, I don't know. It's just a thought. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you think that that's a real possibility? Do you like that idea? Do you not like that idea? If you don't like the idea, what would be another explanation? Or if you have another explanation at all, I'd love to hear it. Again, how do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.